welcome you all this evening. Commission, I'll just say a few introductory remarks, one of which is before you, usually in the banquette before you, there are cards like this. So if you want to speak on an item, if you could fill the card out and bring the card over here, so we'll have your name when we call you. I'd appreciate that. And secondly, when you do speak, if you would, again, just repeat your name and give us your address. This is a written record. This is also being filmed, and for those few people that watched on TV. I always remind people who we are and who we are not. We are the Planning Commission, not the Town Council. Our job basically is to follow the laws which are set by others, including the Town Council. So we try to listen to you and take the facts that you give us and the arguments you give us and work it within our body of knowledge, which includes the law and our knowledge of the town. And when you speak, keep in mind the applicant has up to 5 minutes. Everybody else has up to 3 minutes. And then the applicant concludes with, again, up to 3 minutes. So our procedure is that way. We're fairly informal, and so if when you come up to speak, don't really worry about us. Just kind of be relaxed and tell us why you're here and what you want to talk to us about. Okay. If you have a cell phone or other noise-making device, could you silence it, please? And I think that being the case, that's the preparatory remarks. And now I think we can have the roll called.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like the audience to know that we ask that you bring your speaker cards up to this side so that we can pass them down to the chair. Okay. With that, we'll start our roll call. Commissioner Erickson.
I did say that.
Did you say it? I asked her. I didn't think we both missed it.
I was so worried that I'd forget.
Sorry about that. We're really reminding you that. Okay. Commissioner Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Sayoc, or Jensen, excuse me. We're both here. Now you got me nervous. Commissioner Sayoc. Here. Commissioner Machichi.
Here.
Commissioner Talasford. Here. Vice Chair.
Here.
And Chair O'Donnell.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
All right. If Commissioner Bourgeois would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next matter we have would be the approval of the minutes of January 27th. Is there any discussion of the minutes, or may I please have a motion?
I move approval of the minutes from January 27th.
Thank you. And there's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Written communications, we have 2 desk items.
And that is all we have tonight.
Okay. Requested continuances, we have 1 requested continuance, as I understand it now, and that's a request from staff for a continuance of item number 1.
That's correct. We're requesting continuance until February 24th,
Okay.
your next Planning Commission meeting.
May we have a motion on that? Pardon me? Commissioner Machichi? Yes, please.
I'm just curious why.
The engineering is taking the lead on this, and the engineer staff member that's responsible for it is ill.
All right. May I have a motion? Commissioner Machichi?
I'll make a motion to continue that item to February 24th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Erickson? All those in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. Okay. Subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports? Seeing none. I don't see anything on the consent calendar. As far as the public hearings are concerned, we'll go immediately. Pardon me? Oh, I have not received a card on any verbal communications on matters not on the agenda. So if anybody wants to speak on matters not on the agenda, let me know. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, which relates to 17,230 Buena Vista Avenue. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marley Mosley will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. The subject site is located at 17230 Buena Vista Avenue, approximately 150 feet east of Winchester Boulevard. It consists of 21,344 square feet, and all surrounding properties are single-family with zoning designations of R18, R110, R112, and R120 zoning. The applicant is proposing to rezone the 21,344 square foot R120 property to an R18 zoning designation, which is also a single-family residential zone with a minimum lot size requirement of 8,000 square feet. All properties in the neighborhood, including the subject parcel, have a general plan designation of low-density residential, which is a 0 to 5 units per acre designation. A rezoning to R18 would allow a maximum of 2 lots for the subject parcel. While a subdivision application is not being considered at this time, a 2-lot subdivision would be compatible in terms of lot size and frontage with parcels in the immediate neighborhood. The proposed zoning designation would be consistent with the lots to the west of the subject parcel. The applicant has provided a map of the lot sizes in the immediate neighborhood, and staff has provided an additional map with site addresses for you tonight to help you better distinguish which addresses within the staff report correlate to which site. The proposed rezoning would not set a precedent for other properties on either side of Privada Luisita to downzone, since none of those properties have sufficient land area and or lot frontage to subdivide. And although it may appear that the proposed rezoning would create a separate pocket of R120 zoning south of the subject property, a small strip of cul-de-sac is a legal separate parcel. Therefore, the R120 properties on both sides of Buena Vista will remain connected. The Conceptual Development Advisory Committee considered the zone change and a 2-lot subdivision on May 13th, 2009. The committee was not opposed to the zone change or subdivision, but discussed concerns including tree removal, size and massing consideration for the new homes, and the transition from higher density at the Winchester end of Buena Vista and the lower density as it meets Oak Ridge Way. In anticipation of a future subdivision application, the town's consulting arborist prepared a report for the project, and it is included in your staff report. If the commission finds merit with the proposed zone change, staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of the application to the Town Council and take the following actions. 1, find that the proposed project is exempt pursuant to statutory exemption 21083.3 of the State Environmental Guidelines as adopted by the town. 2, find that the proposed zone change is consistent with the general plan. And 3, forward the draft ordinance to the Town Council with a recommendation of approval. This concludes staff's report. We are here if you have any questions.
Other questions of staff?
Yeah,
Alice Ford.
thank you. I do have a couple of questions. One, and it's relating to the lot frontages. I just wanted to clarify on the map that was provided in our packet, the lot frontage areas, right? Is that the little number under the addresses? Is that correct?
So, for example, parcel 116 directly to the west
Yes.
of the property
Yes.
is 68 feet.
Right.
That's the number that would be distinguishing the frontage. On a corner lot, for example, the one directly next to it, it lists 67, but that doesn't include a little bit of the radius of the curve around the edge. It's only so it's a little harder from this map to distinguish exactly how much frontage that property has.
Okay, so that's the clarification I was wanting. Then my other question for you is, on the page 3 of the staff report for the minimum lot size table summary, I was looking down Buena Vista Avenue, and the 2 end lots, if I see this correctly, 17150, 17160. These properties are not on this matrix. Is there a reason for that, since they're in the same neighborhood?
They're beyond what the immediate neighborhood is defined as in the residential design guidelines, so staff didn't include them because they are not directly they're not within a direct vicinity of the proposed, of the application site. So generally, when we do this a table within the staff report, we try to keep it to the immediate neighborhood as defined by the residential design guidelines.
Interesting, okay. That's all the questions I have right now.
Are there other questions of staff? All right, I'd ask the applicant to come forward and identify himself.
Hi, I'm Brad McCurdy, AIA, with an architect with Terry Martin Associates, the applicant. So the reason for our request for rezoning is that the intent is to make sure that this project of developing this lot is contextual with the neighborhood. So we did an analysis, which is actually the lot size analysis sheet that's included in your packet. And we looked at both the surrounding zoning and the surrounding lot sizes. And we felt it was more important to present the lot sizes because a significant number, over half of the surrounding lots, are non-conforming to their zoning designation. They're significantly smaller than their R120 zoning designation would indicate. Typically, an R120 would be 20,000 square feet. And we have lots, as you can see on the matrix, anywhere from 6,900 square feet on up. So if you look at the color legend on the lot size designation, currently this lot 3 is purple. And with this application, we would be making 2 lots of over 10,000, which would make this lot yellow. And I think you can see from the color coding that a yellow size lot in this context of the transition between high density at Winchester and low density along University would fit into the context. Additionally, the lot frontage, that 160 feet, the only other property that has a longer property line is this lot 11 at 165 feet. It's kind of misleading, though, because Buena Vista Avenue actually ends at Oak Ridge, and the remainder is a cliff down to University. So that property's lot frontage is significantly less than 165 feet, which makes our lot double the average for that street. Our Buena Vista average is 80 feet exactly, which is the proposal to divide these into 2 80-foot frontage lots. The second benefit that would be to the neighborhood would be retaining trees and natural vegetation. We do intend, as part of this subdivision and redesign, to obviously use the residential design guidelines and propose landscaping that would be environmentally conscious and diverse and in keeping with the design guidelines. And the units themselves would be adding 1 more unit to housing stock, and obviously they'd be designed with neighborhood compatibility in mind and, again, with the residential design guidelines in mind. We agree strongly with the staff report. We just wanted to make those couple comments to sort of underline, I think, the high points, and we're ready to answer any questions.
Are there questions of the applicant? Commissioner Telesfor?
Would you clarify for me again what you said about the last 2 lots are not on Buena Vista?
So
What's their address?
No, what I'm saying is Buena Vista Avenue actually ends in a cul-de-sac about 10 feet past Oak Ridge Way.
Yes.
So it's really not going down to connect to University as this parcel map would indicate.
I see, okay.
So their frontage of that last lot is actually short compared to what's shown on this.
I see, okay, thank you.
Approximately half of what's
All
shown.
right, thank you.
Commissioner Sayak?
The comment that you, the color coding that you have here is very useful, so thank you for that. The question that immediately jumped to me was, why are you then proposing an R18 versus an R110?
So an R18 and an R110 have different setbacks and different requirements for street frontage. We can meet all of the requirements for an R18, and even though we would be, the R18 only sets a minimum, so we would be fully compliant with an R18. If we went to R110, if memory serves, and I'd have to look, there are at least one item where, because of the small I don't even know how to characterize it. It's a piece of property that's being used as a long driveway for Lot 6 that's parallel to Privada Lucida. And that piece is considered a road. So because of street frontages and road setbacks, where our lot is considered a corner, we wouldn't meet, we would be non-conforming under a 110. So that's why it's proposed as a 1.8.
Are there other questions? Just for the record, could I have a show of hands of those of us who went out and looked at the property? So everybody went out, so that may help people to know that we have seen it. All right, there apparently are no other questions of you. I've got some cards here, and we'll call you back at the end.
I appreciate it.
First card I have is Gary Moss.
Hi, my name is Gary Moss. I live at 17212 Buena Vista. My lot is approximately 40,000 square feet. My driveway is adjacent to the property that we're talking about, and I'm opposed to dividing the lot simply because I think when you take a parcel of land and divide it into smaller parcels, I think it decreases the value of the neighborhood. And I've got a large lot. My neighbor next door combined 2 lots, and I would like to see the quality of the neighborhood. If one house was built, I think the quality of the neighborhood would increase, and if it's divided up, I think it'll be less charming and it'll be more crowded. That's all I have to say.
Let me just ask a question so I can,
Yes.
by looking at this map, place you. Could you describe to me again where your lot is?
Yes, I have a flag lot. My private driveway runs alongside the lot that we're talking about, and it runs back to a large 40,000
All
square
right,
foot
for our
lot.
purposes, then, I guess it would be parcel number 6 on the assessor's parcel map. Good, I've got it identified. Thank you. Are there other questions of the speaker? Commissioner Telesfor.
I have one question. And how long have you lived here? Lived at that address?
Since 1994.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Oh, Commissioner Sayak.
You mentioned that your neighbor had combined 2 lots. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, I think Bob Hayden and Kate Schulte, I don't know that they combined them, had them zoned together, but there were, let me see, 4 parcels right next to each other. One was a very small parcel. In other words, I have 40,000 square feet. There's a parcel next to me, and then a real small parcel was next to that. And my neighbor has bought both of those and has combined them together.
Do you happen to know the address so that I can pinpoint it on my own map?
17.
It appears to be 75 and 76, the way he's describing
Oh,
it.
okay. These 2.
Has a 50 and a 4 on it. It has a 50 and a 4 on
Okay,
it, whatever
thank
that
you.
is. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's adjacent to your property, and if you face your property, it's to the left.
And would you go
I'm just
down?
looking at- Oh, okay, then it's not. I see. Okay.
Just a note for the commissioners, the map that's at the bottom of your stack of, underneath your desk items for following items, does provide the neighborhood with all the addresses. That might help you a little bit better as people come up and speak.
And you said the address of the 2 lots, what was the address again?
I don't. 17216. 17216 and a half. It's kind of a funky little area over there, actually.
So, have we done- Commissioner Telesfor.
Another question. Question. Oh, did you say that your lot was 40,000 square feet?
I believe so, yes.
Because on our zoning table, it has you as 33,106.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I own the driveway also, so I might be including those 2 parcels together.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
I have no plans to split the lot or anything of that sort, so I mean.
Is that driveway, I saw the driveway, is there an easement granted to someone with that driveway?
Yes, my neighbor next door.
So that, when I did look at those properties, it is somewhat curious how your neighbors fit in. So their only access to their two homes there, I believe.
Yes, my neighbor bought both parcels, and actually, at the present time, I think there's only one livable home.
So that land that you are including in your 40,000 square feet is in fact permanent easement for your neighbors?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next card I have is Vaughn Logan.
Hi, my name's Vaughn Logan, and I live at 17235 Buena Vista, directly across the street. I'm not accustomed to getting involved in my neighbor's project, but that said, I do have a couple of questions regarding the split of the lot. In you folks' experience, if a property owner is allowed to split their lot, what does that do to property values? Do they go up, down? Typically,
let me explain one thing to you about this. We are not in the position of answering these questions that way. We have a staff that you can talk to, but as far as these matters are concerned, we don't have a running dialogue. Now, I'm not discouraging you from finding out, but I would also tell you, we have no particular expertise to tell you about the values of properties. So not only shouldn't we say it, but if we did, I think we'd be probably in error.
okay, can I rephrase the question?
Sure.
Typically, how does it adversely affect the property owners, the existing property owners? Is there any adverse effect?
I guess
in your opinion?
I'm not being clear. We cannot enter into an
Okay.
exchange. I will do this. I will ask staff in a moment, but I really kind of think the question is one that they're not going to be able to answer, but I will ask them for you in a moment. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Just one other question, and if the property is allowed to be split, are there any reassurances you can give to the existing property owners in the neighborhood that there won't be big two-story homes built there like's on the corner?
I can tell you this, we do not have the subdivision before us. In other words, this is a zone change. The zone change will not change the existing lot nor the existing improvements on the lot. However, the applicant has told us that if this is approved, they will come in with a proposed subdivision, which then has to be also approved. And then in the normal course, I would anticipate architectural site approval, and that also would have to be approved. And that's where you get into.
So we're not there yet.
You're not there yet.
Okay.
And you folks should have an opportunity, even assuming we rezone it tonight, to then comment on the proposed subdivision. And I would assume, if we're going to have architectural site approval, to comment on the proposed improvements.
Okay.
But tonight, we're not doing that. Okay.
Okay.
Any other thing you wanted to say? Okay.
Nope.
So you can sit down, but I'll just ask staff for your, I'll repeat your question. I really don't think it's necessarily a proper question, but they can tell me that. You understand the question is just our experience with the effect of dividing a parcel into two. It's a really general question, and it looks like the town attorney is going to tell me.
Well, I think the chair is correct. In terms of expression of value, that's not something we could do with any confidence, but the general plan policies are for generally to maintain property values and to make sure neighborhoods are compatible. And if there was anything that the staff believed was deleterious from even that standpoint, from a value standpoint, from compatibility standpoint, they would point that out to the commission and or recommend against it. So I think with the recommendation going to the commission, the staff at least believes that it is consistent with the neighborhood and would not have a negative effect on the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next card, I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this correctly, is Dave Archibald?
It's actually Dale. It's probably my writing.
I always have trouble with Dale and Dave.
My name's Dale Archibald. My wife Carol and I live at 17191 Buena Vista Avenue. We lived there since 1974. It's across the street and up about one house. You know, we moved to the neighborhood a long time ago, and we love it. It's friendly. We help everybody. Everybody helps everybody out. It's you know, it's kind of this rural feel, and you know, people get together a lot, and it's the definition, at least our definition of the neighborhood, is really Buena Vista, Oak Ridge, Wild Way. It's not, you know, 4 houses and 2 lots between Privada Luisa and Winchester. So I think that, you know, we've had a lot of changes in the neighborhood over the last 25 or so years, but they've generally kept the same rural feel and that attracted us and others to the area. I had a chance to review some of the documents that were submitted, and I thought I saw the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee report or letter from April of 2000, or May of 2009, and I thought the questions that were raised by the committee were really thoughtful and were excellent. In reading the application to split these lots that was submitted in February by TMA, and the letter was signed by Brad McCurdy, I didn't see many answers to those questions and any assurances that some of the questions, the answers to the questions would actually take place. If you look, and I don't want to necessarily go down through everything, but there are a lot of, I don't know if you call them inaccuracies or certainly difference in perspective from what's stated in the letter and I think what the residents feel. And I've talked to a number of my neighbors, and they feel very differently than you know, what is stated. For instance, one of the comments is that the primary benefit in rezoning is to achieve neighborhood compatibility. And I don't know how that is even close to being accurate when rezoning is going to really reduce the size of the lots, when in fact, if you look at the length of Buena Vista, there are many lots that are this size or larger, and certainly most of them, probably 75% of them, are in excess of R18,000.
Thank you very much. Your time is up, but let's see if there are any questions. Are there any questions of the speaker? Commissioner Telesfor.
Yes. So it was interesting that, so you define your neighborhood as not just Buena Vista, but all of this area.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we all get together, you know, periodically. It's certainly not what really used to be 2 lots between Privada Luisa and Winchester. Mr. Crema, who we bought our home from 25 plus years ago, owned the property on the corner there, and that was one piece of property. And now it's R18,000 or R18 or whatever the right term is, and there are, you know, 3 huge houses that have nothing to do with the character of the neighborhood sitting on those 3 lots. We've remodeled our house and re-landscaped. Vaughn and Susan Logan have, Sherry and Jeff Williams have, Richard and Julia Moss have. You know, it's all changed, but the character's been maintained. And I think what we're very nervous about and concerned about is that, you know, if you grant this subdivision of the lots, then we're going to have a very, very different kind of a neighborhood. And it's kind of just like creeping rezoning that's taking place. So that's our main concern.
I have 2.
Go ahead.
Two questions. Second question is, so I'm gathering that you're more opposed to this division?
Yes, because of the uncertainty. I think my neighbor Vaughn Logan asked questions about, you know, what's it going to look like. The response was, well, we don't know. You know, it's, if all the concerns about residential design guidelines, that, you know, they said that there's going to be landscaping and screening vegetation, et cetera. Well, I don't know if anybody's checking on that stuff, but nobody clearly looked at the first two houses that were put on Buena Vista. They moved in, and after the houses were built and sold, the owners on the corner managed to tear out their yard and cut down 3 oak trees. You know, that's not what's compatible. You know, who follows up? Who assures that these things are actually going to happen?
Thank you. And then I have just one other question. Your address is 17191, is that right? And did you check your lot size? Is that compatible as well?
That's not accurate. I mean, it is accurate for the one lot, but we own 2 lots, virtually unbuildable.
Okay.
I guess you'd say the second lot. So our lot size is really something between 1/2 and 2/3 of an acre. It's that little, there's a little box behind it. We have an easement, but good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other questions?
Yeah.
Next card I have is Lee Quintana.
Hi, good evening. Lee Quintana, 5 Palm Avenue, Los Gatos. One of my questions was already asked and answered as to why it was being proposed as R818 rather than 110. Another comment that I have is it would be really helpful to the audience and those watching on television if the maps that you are referring to were shown, because I have no idea about what's been said and where they're located and have an understanding of what's going on. And thirdly, I'm just curious, it's probably questions for staff, that given the fact that it appears that there are a large number of properties in that area that are not consistent with their zoning designation already, whether or not there has been any consideration to look at that whole area and rezone the properties that are already developed at an incompatible density to the actual zoning that they are. If I've made myself clear.
Yes, thank you. Are there any questions? No.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
There are copies of the map. They're out on the table in the lobby. Yeah, we just grabbed one. And unfortunately, our projector is broken tonight, or we would display it on the projector. So that's why we made extra copies and put them out on the table.
Thank you. The next card I have, well, I think that's all the public comment I have. So the next card I have is actually the applicant again. So unless somebody else had missed turning in a card, I'll ask the applicant to come back. Oh, excuse me, we do have another card. Why don't we wait then? Okay, this is Chris Tedford.
Hi, Commission. My name is Chris Tedford. I live at 17190 Buena Vista. So I'm on the same side of the street as the proposed property. Real quick, haven't reviewed the drawings. I don't know the details of it, and I apologize. But I've lived at the property for just a year. My family's been in town for 80 years. That road, when I pulled up and bought that property last year, really takes me back to a nice old Los Gatos. And so just want to express my feeling to you that that's a unique, all the way up and around, that area is a very unique a unique area in town, I think. And so I'm just asking you to be responsible with that. And I look forward to a little bit more. I'm not opposed to the development of it. I'm a general contractor in town, have been for a long time. But I am opposed to something irresponsible. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there questions of the speaker? Thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
All right, I think now we can get back to the applicant. You have up to 3 minutes.
So in response to a couple of the items that were raised, I understand that there could be frustration with the process, but there really are 3 separate phases: the phase of rezoning, the phase of lot split, and then the phase of proposal of development. If we could wrap all of those into one phase and respond with specific designs that relate to the residential design guidelines, we really would. I think that it's hard for someone to be patient to get to that point, but it's hard for us to make a proposal for a piece of architecture unless we have the entitlements in place in order to support that. So the second response is just to make sure that there isn't a misimpression about lots 50 and lot 4 that are neighboring properties. They may be owned by the same individual, but there are currently 2 residences on those lots. So if there's an intent to merge those lots and develop them as one property with 1 residence, we're not aware of it. We are more than happy to talk to the neighbors as part of the next phase of lot split and as part of the following phase of development prior to site and architecture review. Charlie Whitman, the current property owner, actually sent out self-addressed stamped envelopes with response cards explaining this process and what the intent was, and received back uniformly positive comments, some with minor concerns which we've already addressed, things like make sure that you keep fences and screening vegetation, which would be part of any proposal in the design phase when that's appropriate. So we will continue to reach out to the neighbors, and then as part of the design phase, invite them to review conceptual and schematic designs before we even get far enough to submit to Los Gatos.
Do you happen to know how wide an area his cards went to?
I believe his cards matched the neighborhood context that Marnie addressed earlier, that matches up with this. Oh, okay. So all of the properties that are immediately contiguous with his, that touch his lot, or across either of the streets. So that might not have included the entire matrix that's on page 3.
So the properties which are adjacent and the properties which are essentially directly across the street, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And just for the record here, too, was a notice sent to property owners within 300 feet?
There were a total of 11 property owners that were on the list that we had gotten from Charlie.
Okay. Just hold on for a second. I wanted to confirm with the staff. What's the distance you give notice on a rezoning?
300 feet.
Okay. So you gave one set of notices. The town?
Staff directed the applicant back in 2008, I believe. Yes. They sent out notices to their neighbors in September of 2008 as a direction from staff to kind of get some feedback from their neighborhood instead of holding a neighborhood meeting. Staff does have all those notices, copies of those notices that the applicant sent out if the Planning Commission is interested. Staff did include the ones that were returned to the applicant as part of your staff report.
All right, thank you.
But for this application, we did do our standard notification of 300 feet.
Okay, thank you. Are you finished?
I believe so.
Okay. Are there questions of the speaker? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll now close the public hearing and ask for comments, questions, and ultimately a motion. So who would like, Commissioner Sayoc?
So I have a question of staff. There was a mention today of properties on 17216 and 17216.5. Has staff aware of an intent, or has a formal application come forward?
No.
Possibly combining the two?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Bourgeois?
I have another question of staff. One of the speakers raised it, and I was curious as well. Is how do so many lots in a zone become out of compliance like that? And is there any plan to rezone them to make them match what actually exists, or how does that work?
A lot of these properties came in pre-zoned from the county. There's a interesting pattern of annexations that happened out in that neighborhood, and chunks came in at different times. When the applicant originally was looking at making application, we did try to research the history on that, and it's not really clear as to why all of them. I think the council decided to zone those all R120 to limit subdivision, but they did permit some subdivisions in the area, so there's not really a clear answer as to why it's zoned R120 that's specific in the history, but rezoning them wouldn't necessarily make any difference as far as trying to make them conforming, because most of them are not even conforming to the R18 zone.
So if I hear you correctly, though, there seems to have been some intention on the part of the council to zone it 120 to prevent subdivision?
There's nothing in writing. It's just my understanding from talking with historical staff.
Okay.
The other comment I would add is typically when you do annex property into a jurisdiction, you're going to zone it at the most conservative zoning or the least density possible until you find it's time for a suitable rezoning of that property. For instance, if we annex property in hillsides, we'll zone it probably at the large or at the least density that you can do, so that you have time to then consider what's most appropriate. So that's a pretty standard process. Not sure if that was the case here, but that is pretty standard.
Okay, thank you.
So following up on that, if you look at the list we have before us on page 3, I didn't count them, but maybe there are 15 or so lots there. Only 2 are above 15,000 square feet. There's one that's 33,000 and this one, which is 21.6. So the most conservative zoning would have been, how's conservative zoning arrived at when you've got one that's 33,000 and one that's 21.6?
Another thing to consider is that there, and again, I don't have the annexation records in front of me, but they may have zoned at R120 because that's what was contiguous to the properties, because you can't do spot zoning of them, so that may have been another aspect.
We're not picking on you. You weren't there. I was just curious if you knew, so thank you. Are there other questions? Is there a discussion? Because we've heard some interesting comments. They're good comments. We've all gone out and looked at the property, and it is an interesting and in some senses charming neighborhood. So does anybody have any comments? Commissioner Erickson?
Can I go back and ask the question to be sure I'm understanding correctly? At least I had the impression, this is for Ms. Mosley, from an earlier conversation which she and I had, if I understood correctly, and I may have misunderstood, that the individual parcels in this area, as best as we understand, came in at different moments, were annexed at different moments, so there wasn't a general, it wasn't done as a group at the time. And as best we understand, as a general principle, that was the impression I had the other day, they probably came when though the town council has to act and actually zone the property when it comes in and annexed, they by and large use the zoning designation that was the county's zoning, that's the impression I got the other day, which would not necessarily declare any intent of the council, and to the extent that they came in over a period of time, it would, unless they zoned them all exactly the same, it would be hard to draw a conclusion that there was an intent of the council to do anything.
I don't think we should, we're on very thin ice if we talk about the intent, and in fact, the intent probably isn't very relevant at this point anyway. We've got what we've got, and to go back at various times in history and kind of guess what the intent is probably not a good idea, I think.
I can just make one comment in that properties are traditionally pre-zoned within our sphere of influence, so they usually, when they are annexed in, there was already a pre-zone, a designated zone that it would come in as when it is annexed. So even if it's annexed one piece at a time, there's a pre-zoning on it.
Let me, Commissioner Bourgeois.
Well, you can go ahead. I was going to just make some comments. If
Oh, I am too, but you please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to state that I completely understand the concerns of the neighbors. When you see someone wants to subdivide and build new homes, especially looking at some of the homes in that immediate area where they do kind of stand out a little bit, it's a bit scary. But that's really not what's before us tonight, and I think we need to keep that in mind. I can assure you that this commission takes the residential design guidelines very seriously, and we take neighborhood compatibility very seriously when it does come to that step. So that's a message to you folks. But what's before us is the zone change, and when I look at the findings we have to make for this zone change, and I look at the pattern and the sizes of the lots surrounding this parcel, I would have a hard time not granting this zone change. So that's where I'm standing right now. Just thought I'd kick it off that way.
I agree with those comments, and I too went out in the neighborhood, and it has a lot of charm, historical charm, and I'm old enough to remember California a long time ago, and so it has that charm for me. On the other hand, this particular property, I think, would probably be improved, or the improvements removed, and two lots put in where we would have a crack at approving the design, approving the kind of vegetation that would be put in would have to be essentially comport with a lot of new things that didn't exist a long time ago. So my impression was that the neighborhood would be benefited by this. And secondly, from the town standpoint, we are responsible, the town is, for trying to make homes as reasonable as they can. And I'm certainly not against bigger lots. But when you look at this under all the circumstances, it appears to me that splitting this into two lots and improving the improvements and improving the vegetation would be a benefit not only to the neighborhood but the town. So it's a long way of saying I agree with Commissioner Bourgeois. Are there other comments? If not, may I have, Commissioner Talasfore.
Right. The only comment I wanted to make, because I do agree with you, what's before us is the approval of the subdivision and, I'm sorry, the zone for a possible subdivision lots. But anyway, the development, but the word I kept hearing, and I think it really was with the residents, is the uncertainty of what's it going to look like, and we all worry about that. And since this is a recommendation to council only, I would make the recommendation that in their decision that for sure this comes back to Planning Commission for architecture and site, and that the vegetation, including the moderate trees, be totally maintained, because frankly, those trees, if I remember, and I was trying to look at the pictures and identify them, it's the character that those trees and their canopy bring to that street. And that will be very important in the development. And the fact that the street's higher on one side than the other, so all of that will come into play. And other than that, the benefit to the town at this point is another home. And we are in search of homes, and hopefully maybe affordable. Who knows if it's, Anyway, that's my comment.
Are there any other comments? If not, may I please have a motion? Commissioner Bourgeois.
I would like to move to forward the draft ordinance as presented in Exhibit 7 to Town Council with a recommendation for approval. And I can make the findings that the proposed project is exempt pursuant to statutory exemption 21083.3 of the state environmental guidelines as adopted by the town, and that the proposed zone change is consistent with the general plan, specifically pertaining to LP 1.5, in which this proposal is stating that they will retain the majority of the existing trees on site. LP 4.5, in that this proposal will allow for future subdivision, which would add a residential unit to the town housing stock, and HG 2.1, in that this proposal would allow future subdivision, again, which would allow add to the housing stock. And so that's my motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? It's unanimous. Thank you all very much. The next item is item number 3, and this relates to 29 University Avenue, and it is for conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Savage will be presenting this report.
As soon as we let her sit down.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. The project site is located on the east side of University Avenue, approximately 190 feet south of Elm Street. The subject space is surrounded by commercial uses, and immediately west of the site is a public parking lot. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to operate a formula retail business in an approximately 1,225 square foot retail space located in the Old Town Shopping Center. Old Town contains restaurant, retail, and personal service uses. The subject commercial space was previously occupied by Naturino, which was a children's shoe store. In November 2002, Town Council adopted an ordinance defining a formula retail business. Town code requires a conditional use permit for a formula retail business of any size in the C2 zone. The applicant's business, Francesca's Collections, falls under the definition of a formula retail business and therefore requires a conditional use permit. Francesca's Collection is an apparel, jewelry, gift, and home accessory retail business. The applicant submitted a letter of justification describing the proposed business and justifying the proposed location. The general plan emphasizes retail uses in the central business district where the subject space is located. The general plan also encourages a variety of commercial uses to meet the residents' shopping needs while maintaining a small town character. Although Francesca's falls under the definition of a formula retail business, the business imparts a unique boutique shopping experience that caters to customers in Los Gatos and is in keeping with the small town atmosphere. Additionally, the business will contribute to the retail mix and enhance the number of retail businesses in the central business district. This will be Francesca's first location in Northern California. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Yes, Commissioner Jensen.
I looked in the staff report, and I see that you conclude that it falls under the definition, but there's no indication of why? Or is it because there's 7 of them?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
So they have 7 or more.
Where are the other?
There are many in Southern California, and there are also located throughout the United States.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions? If not, I have one card, which I'm going to guess is going to be the applicant, Michelle Boyd. Take your time. We're not going to start the clock going until you make that thing work.
Chair, I apologize. Our original overhead projector is broken, so we've done some modifications to view it.
Well, yeah, that's why I want to give her a few moments to set it up.
Good evening.
If you're ready, you can start, but you might want to wait.
I may want to wait.
Sure. Commissioner Sayak has a question of staff.
One of the justifications in the staff report was the difference in price point. So the question is, how is that defined and what would be the price point of this particular store?
So town does not define price point in any area, but I would certainly look to the applicant to sort of explain where their price point is and how it differs from the surrounding businesses.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break and let you set this up, because we're just all standing around looking at you. Let's take 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michelle. I am with Francesca's Collections, and that is at 3480 West 12th Street in Houston, Texas. That's our corporate headquarters. And before I became your applicant, I was the visual merchandiser, so I felt I was best representative to explain how we do cater to each town and community as we enter it. So this is a gift table that we have in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Since Fort Lauderdale does have a lot of traveling and, what's the word I'm looking for here? We have a lot of snowbirds, and I'm not trying to centralize it in that respect, but we have a table that has passports. A little, oh no. Top button, okay. So down here at the bottom, instead of trying to figure this out, we have passport holders, we have pill boxes, we have travel soaps and travel lotions. We have a book for 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. Sunglasses, coupon and receipt holders, just something that appeals to the person who travels. This is in Scottsdale, Arizona. They have a lot of spa and golf resorts, so we appeal to the person who's there to relax. We have little, little bath fizzies for people who want to soak their feet. We have cupcake fizzies for people who just want a nice relaxing smell when they soak. We have lotions and potions for the women. Different books you can read. Some people like to drink tea when they're relaxing. You know, just the overall appeal to each clientele. This is an office one we've done in Connecticut. Not sure if that really applies to a Connecticut consumer, but it's something we tried. We have different mouse pads. We have an idea book, different passport holders, ID holders, business card holders. And then, of course, the little appeal to the green consumer with the recyclable bag here at the bottom, and all different shapes and sizes. Here's how we appeal to our apparel customer. We try to pick colors that appeal to each region. This happens to be in Arizona as well. They like the teals, the reds. They have a bohemian look, so we brought in that type of style. This is also in Phoenix. They have teals, rusts, whites. We appeal to that side as well. This is the very first one I did on my own, and this is, they have bohemian style, I guess they're called, what's the word? It's a maxi dress, if you are familiar with that particular one. There are 3 different types of maxi dresses there, and we put that in our Arizona market. Here's a definition of just a basic apparel window that we do. This is in one of my favorite locations in Madison, Wisconsin. They have more of a scarf, oversized jackets, sweaters, cardigans, the wools type suits, And again, this appeals to their market. This is in Houston, Texas. We have hot, humid weather, so of course we have the shorter dress, more t-shirt, jersey-like material, brighter colors, just to appeal to our audience. Just as we try to make each the interior of our store look different to each client, this is an exterior that we try to appeal to. This is South Carolina, or North Carolina, I'm sorry, North Carolina. It's an indoor mall, but we did do the awning just to kind of give it a more finished look instead of just a regular sign on the top. And this is Miami, because Miami loves the bright colors, and they like the wow factor. So we appealed to their community. They had more of burnt siennas, so we went with the rust and yellow. This is Atlanta, Georgia. Just a basic look. It's what they wanted, so we delivered. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
I could ask you what you're going to do for Los Gatos, but but go ahead, Commissioner Telesfor, maybe you'll
Well,
ask.
you actually took the words right out of my mouth. And so for Los Gatos, there's actually two things I'd like to know. Because it sounds like you try to get into a community and figure out their style for a certain population. I think in the staff report, it's 18 to 35.
That is for our apparel.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, well, anyway, so the question is, for that, your style for Los Gatos, how are you going to cater to us? And also, how do you think about catering to the community and being, how do I want to say it, friendly to our endeavors here as a community?
Okay.
I think you have two questions.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out which one to... To appeal to the community, we allow our boutique managers to pick and approve or just give opportunities to give back to the community, either through high school functions, donating pieces. We also have a nationally recognized program that we have done through all of our stores, not just a particular location, where if you give to a national charity and you bring in the receipt, you are entitled to 30% off up to $100 of a purchase in our store. So we are always looking for opportunities to give back to any community, whether it be national or local. And as far as your second question, or your first question, boutique managers are hired locally. We're going to bring in 10 associates from the community, and we're going to rely on them to recognize the community, of their trends, of the fashion-forward aspect of your community, and it is pretty much their responsibility, as well as their artistic freedom, to know what the community wants and how to cater to your lifestyle.
So my follow-up is, you're going to bring in somebody from our community, or do you mean the greater community?
Your community.
From Los Gatos to
Yes.
manage your store?
Yes.
Is there, I mean, how do you do that? Los Gatos only can apply, or?
Well, we want to hire locally because we rely on them.
I appreciate that. I was just curious as to how, has that been what you've done in all your others?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we try not, in extreme circumstances, we will transfer boutique managers from one location to another, but it's usually because they prefer to live there.
Okay, thank you.
I think I saw another hand. Yes, Commissioner Sack?
So I had the question on the price point that I asked staff. The second one I have is, you went over where some of your locations were, and I understand you have at least one in Southern California?
We have 9.
You have 9 in, oh, okay. What's the closest, like Los Angeles? What's the closest to us?
Los Angeles is the closest.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm thinking La Jolla. Any other questions? Oh, the price point, I apologize. For apparel, we start around $18, going all the way up to $108, and it honestly depends on the material of the apparel and the embellishment that we put on it. For jewelry, it's anywhere between $6 all the way up to $68. Again, it's all on the quality of the beadwork. Gift starts at $1.50, goes all the way up to $108, and that's usually our wall decor, one of the larger pieces. You're welcome.
Commissioner Bourgeois?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. One, I'm just curious how many locations you do have, and I'm also curious about what your goals are in Northern California. This is the first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have other pending applications? Are you
Not
you
at
know,
this time.
What attracted you to Los Gatos in particular? But I really would curious to know just the
How many
number
we
of
have?
yeah.
We have 150 open to date.
All right, are there other questions?
I didn't get my second half answered, which is, Northern California goals and what attracted you to Los Gatos.
What attracted us to Los Gatos is the community itself. We like the appeal. We feel like we would be a great fit, and we would. As far as our goals for Northern California, at this time, you would be the first. We don't have any plans at this time. Mm-hmm.
All right, no one else has questions. Thank you very much, and yours is the only card, I believe, that I have, so you can't very well rebut yourself. So if you have anything in conclusion you want to say, however, I'll give you that opportunity.
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a discussion and ultimately a motion. Commissioner Matucci?
Just to get clarifications, and once the CUP is given, it goes with the land, right? So that now does that mean in this case another farm store could come in if they moved out of any type? Or does it have to be one very similar to the existing farm store? How is that covered in the conditions? I don't recall how we've done that in the past.
As the Planning Commission, as the hearing body, you have the ability to change the recommended conditions, of course, but what we've recommended is a condition of approval that specifies that the use is for a significant mix of women's apparel, jewelry, gifts, and home accessories.
So it's pretty well defined.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Jetson?
I just want to follow up on that to make sure that I understand. Regardless of the specificity of the conditions that you just mentioned to us, that once it's approved as a conditional use permit for formula retail, another formula retail can go in there.
As long as that other formula retail operates as the condition states.
Okay, I can think of a couple.
If you look at it, just for the record, too, if you look at Exhibit 3 and you look at Paragraph 3, which is, these are the conditions of approval, I believe, and so the use is defined, and it's fairly, to me, it's fairly narrowly defined. Now, you ladies would know better than I, but it seems more narrowly defined, because I have the same worry you do, that it runs with the land, but as long as it's just restricted, it's going to be fairly well restricted. So are there other questions? Does anyone care to make a motion? Let me also say that our policy on stores, I feel when we apply it, I have a different feeling for it when it goes into an area like Old Town, which is perhaps different, at least in my mind, than being located in the neighborhood, neighborhood's the wrong word, but on Santa Cruz Avenue or on Main Street in different areas. We know that Old Town has a number, really, of chain stores in it. That doesn't get around the problem. But we've also heard, I think, a description tonight, which in my mind at least, and I'm sure we're all familiar with the property, does distinguish it from certainly the other stores in Old Town, and as far as I can tell, at least narrowly construed, distinguishes it from any other single store in town. So I just point that out. Now, again, does anybody want to make a motion? Commissioner Matucci.
make a motion to approve conditional use permit U-09-027, requesting approval to establish a farm retail business, Francesca's Collection, on property zone C2 LHP PD APN 529-02-044. I find that the project is category exempt pursuant to section 15301 of the state environmental guidelines is adopted by the town, and that the project consists of permitting an existing facility with no expansion. The required findings for a conditional use permit, as written there, the deciding is required by section 292190 of the town code for granting conditional use permit. On the basis of the evidence submitted in the hearing, we are granting this because it's specifically authorized by the provisions of the town code. The proposed use of property is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare, especially to my wife, even though she's over 35, in the use that provides a unique retail service in the downtown area. Proposed use will not impair the integrity and character of the zone, and the use will be in the commercial zone. The proposed uses will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or general welfare, and the conditions placed on the permit will mitigate potential impacts. And the proposed uses of the property are in harmony with various elements or objectives of the general plan purposes of the town code as discussed in the staff report. Let's see. And the required finding for the redevelopment plan for the Central Los Gatos redevelopment project. The proposed project is consistent with the redevelopment plan for the Central Los Gatos redevelopment project area, in that the subject property is designated commercial and the property use falls under general commercial uses.
Is there a second? Commissioner Erickson.
I would second it with understanding from the motion maker that it's subject to the conditions outlined in the exhibit.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Phil, you're going to go home now having stipulated that your wife is over 35.
Well, not much.
I don't envy you.
Not much over 35.
All right, is there further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? So it's unanimous. Thank you. So we have one matter left on our agenda, and that's item number 4. And this relates to a conditional use permit from T-Mobile relating to property on Wedgwood Avenue. May I have a staff report?
There is a desk item for this project, and it is available in the lobby for anyone who is interested. The project is located north of Wedgwood Avenue, south of Highway 85, approximately 500 feet northwest of Wimbledon Drive. Railroad tracks are located immediately to the south. Single-family residences are located immediately adjacent to the railroad tracks. The nearest residence is approximately 100 feet away. The applicant is requesting approval to establish a wireless telecommunications facility on an existing PG&E tower.
Is that the applicant?
The applicant submitted a written description and letter of justification for the proposed project. The Federal Telecommunication Act of 1996 regulates local decision-making authority. Local authority is limited to 2 areas of review: aesthetics and location. The Town Council adopted a wireless telecommunications ordinance and standards for wireless telecommunication facilities in 2003 to regulate the siting and design of wireless facilities. Town code exempts antennas and mechanical equipment from height restrictions of any zoning district as they relate to the telecommunication facilities. However, the standards of wireless telecommunications facilities require a conditional use permit for a telecommunication facility to exceed the height allowed by the zone. The project consists of installing an 11-foot 6-inch height extension to an existing 118-foot 8-inch tower for a combined height of 130 feet and 2 inches. It also consists of installing 6 panel antennas, 1 GPS antenna, and 1 microwave antenna. The height extension is required to meet separation requirements from the transmission lines to the telecommunication antennas. The proposed antenna height placement is also necessary to achieve the full in-building coverage. The project complies with the applicable standards and meets the intent of the standards for wireless telecommunication facilities. The project also meets the goals of the Wireless Telecommunications Facility Ordinance, specifically by providing full coverage. The desk item contains an additional recommended condition of approval to ensure the applicant obtains the proposed easements prior to construction of the proposed project. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Are there questions of staff? If not, I have one card from Ms. Agazanian. I'm sorry, I can't read the first. Is it Talon?
Good evening. I'm Talene Agazarian, representing T-Mobile. I don't really have anything else to add. We concur with the report and the conditions of approval, so I'm available for questions if you have any.
Are there questions? I have a question.
Yes.
And that is, that's a pretty high piece of metal, essentially, 130 feet. What's your experience on putting on height in areas like this? I mean, I can see way out in the boondocks, and this is probably a good location, but I just wonder, how high do you go on these?
Well, this top, we call it a top hat, this 11-foot 6-inch, and it's a standard structure. And this is what PG&E wants when we do most of these types of installations, is just a prefabricated structure that they tag on top of the tower, and it's really to maintain the required separation from PG&E transmission lines. It's not really the carriers. I mean, we have the height. We don't really need to go any higher. It's PG&E's requirement that we stay a certain amount away, and it's usually 10 feet. And they just add the 11-foot 6-inch so you can actually co-locate and put another antenna installation on there.
When I went out and looked at this, as you come from the east, I guess, moving west, and you see the line of the PG&E power poles. The one that is immediately to the east, I guess, as I read the report, said that one's not available because, and it wasn't clear to me why that was not.
There are 2 carriers already on that tower, and so there's just no more room on there.
But do those also, those are not 130 feet, are they?
No, they are not. Those are not. And, I'm really not sure why that's like that. I know that the design of our tower, if you look at the top, it is slightly different than theirs. We have what's called a goat head structure on top of the existing. I've learned way more about PG&E towers than I really care to, but talking to our PG&E correspondent, that's what he said, is the top of the design is slightly different than the one next to us. So there were some reasonings then for that. We cannot stay at the existing height of the tower because of that goat head sort of structure. It interferes with our antennas, so we do need to create some height. We can probably go below the 11-foot 6-inch if you would like us to, but we can't go much lower than that. And it will allow another antenna to go up there as well. So, give or take another 6 feet, is it really going to make a huge difference? I don't know. It's already 120-foot structure. So
the other question I had is the location of the above-ground equipment. When I looked at the drawing, it wasn't quite clear to me where it is in relation to the freeway wall.
Oh, it's ways away from the wall. It's very near the tower, actually.
Okay, those are my questions. Does anybody else have questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will close the public hearing and ask if there's any discussion or a motion. Yes, Commissioner Sack?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. Okay. I move to approve conditional use permit U-09-003 for location north of Wedgwood Avenue, south of Highway 85, approximately 500 feet northwest of Wimbledon Drive. There's no exact address to speak of. And I can make the findings that the proposed project is categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15303 of the State Environmental Quality Act. Can also make the required findings as required by Section 2920-190 of the Town Code for granting approval of the conditional use permit. That is all contained within the staff report and the documentation there. I can also make the required findings as required by Section 2920-216 of the Town Code for granting approval of a wireless telecommunications facility, again contained in the staff report. Approved conditional use permit. I'd also like to include the remarks contained in our desk item with regards to the PG&E easement.
Is there a second? Commissioner Bourgeois seconds it. Is there a discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Rooney, do you have anything that you want to report on?
I don't have anything I want to report on. I did want to let the Planning Commission know that at our last meeting, Commissioner Erickson asked a question regarding the Planning Commission's role and responsibility in reviewing the general plan and making a recommendation to the town council. And I felt I didn't do a really thorough job in answering that question for you. And I think what the important point I wanted to make is that the council has established the charge of the update and the focus of the update. And I did ask for staff to obtain that direction that was given to the staff from the council, and I'll be preparing an email. I was hoping to get it done in time to give it to you tonight as a memo, but I just didn't have the time. So I'll be sending out an email probably in the next week that will explain what the council's mission or charge was, what their direction was, and the GPAC's role, and then what the Planning Commission should be looking at in terms of the internal consistency of the document, and then again focusing back on what the council had directed, to give you some guidance as we go through that process. I just want to let you know you should get that in the next week.
Yes, Commissioner Sayak?
That's very helpful, Ms. Rooney. Thank you. In that email, if you could also, I know it's all tentative, but outline when you project the heaviest review period would be. It's getting to a point where I just need to start scheduling the next few months, and so
Great.
what would help me with my workload?
We do. We will. I actually we're really, really close to finalizing the schedule. We had, I think it was 7 or 8 boards and commissions besides the GPC and GPAC that we're meeting with. We have 7 or 8 boards and commissions that we've been trying to confirm meetings with. We're taking it to the Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Parks Commission, the Arts Commission, and so we're down to, I think, just one more commission or committee that needs to be scheduled, and then I'll have a final schedule, and it should actually be going out to the council as well as the Planning Commission a week from Friday. But I may be able to get it out earlier with that email, so you will have that. Okay?
Commissioner Erickson?
Just for the record and for my fellow commissioners, I had a great conversation with Ms. Rooney between the last meeting and tonight that helped clarify some of the answers to my questions. So just wanted to be on the record for everybody, including Ms. Rooney, that we had a terrific conversation about it that I appreciated.
I have a question, and that is, my recollection is that the election of the chair and the vice chair should be the next meeting. Is that correct?
I was told that it was either the last meeting in February or the first one in March. I think it is the last one in February, and if that's the case, it will occur next meeting, yes.
Just so we're all aware of that.
We will, though, just a reminder, we'll have a longer agenda next week, or next meeting, because we now will have the grading ordinance in addition to Placer Oaks is on there, too, so it's going to be a little bit longer meeting.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Telesfor.
Yeah, on that, the grading, do you expect, you want feedback from the commission on the changes, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. You know what, it might be helpful, and I don't know how we could do this, but is there a way we could have Chapter 12? I mean, it's kind of hard to go back and forth.
Existing?
Yes.
Sure. We can send that to you.
We could get that.
That's online.
You can get online. Yeah, we can email it to you, but it's in the zoning ordinances online. If it's easier, we can just.
No, that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
We don't mind because it's not just the zoning code. You have to actually go through the municipal code, the entire town code online. So if it's easier, we can just take that and put it into a
Sure.
PDF.
Oh, that'd be great.
We'll do.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Bourgeois?
On that note, I think maybe just for future, I would have found it easier, I think, if I would have gotten like a strike-through version.
Thank you.
With previous and new text designated, but,
Yeah.
It's hindsight now, but.
No, that's a good point. And I know it's a much easier way to review it, I understand. I'm not sure the engineering department actually drafted that code section, so I'm just not sure how complicated that would have been, but I agree with you, that's a lot easier way to see the changes, so.
Well, the other thing is, when you read it without that, you tend to be looking at everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And you come up with all kinds of wonderful ideas that are totally unrelated to what you were asked to do. So it's, for their own safety, it's always good to let us know.
I'll communicate that to them.
Okay. Now, any commissioners have anything they want to say this evening? I know you're all disappointed, but we're going to finish early. Let me just say one thing. Personally, if we could have the engineering report and the proposed changes at the end of the calendar rather than at the beginning of the calendar, because it may be a while that we want to talk about that. That's my impression, having read it. And I hate to have people sitting out there that have matters they probably won't be fascinated by our review of this stuff. So if you consider that, I'd appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we had anyone tonight that was here for it. So
No, it doesn't appear to be the case
not really
out there.
exciting.
All right. The meeting is adjourned.